It's time to talk NASCAR on Prime Sports Network. And that means Eric Smith joins me once again. How's it going, Eric?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, it was another pretty, for the most part, boring race, which we anticipated, with the exception of the drama towards the end of the race. And naturally, once again, I mean, you really are lucky that you just didn't. I wasn't doing a reaction video on Sunday. You wouldn't have wanted to see how my initial reaction would have been to that, because I just can't handle anymore how many times it's not even fair. How many
Yep.
times I have a driver in the lead that's going to win and a caution comes out, and every time I hope for a caution, it never happens. I can't take it anymore. It's not fair. I don't like it.
No, it's getting to the point where, like I said after Daytona, we got to just start ending in regulation because it takes that all out of it. It's because Harvick was damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they take two tires, everybody else is going to take four. If he takes four, six guys took two. It just adds to the randomness of it. Where the weekend before, Kyle Larson probably wins. I honestly, you could probably look at it and say, other than Kyle Busch and Fontana, the other three races, if you end in regulation, have three different winners.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch would win the 500. Larson would win Vegas, and you probably have Kevin Harvick last week. But instead, it's just that's got to be frustrating to common fans, to diehard fans, to people that are gambling. Like, well, what? It's just like if a team, I guess if you want to equate it to a stick and ball sport, they're up 10. Or like we see it in the March Madness here, they're going to be up 10 with a minute to go, and it's foul city. Everybody just keeps fouling. But instead of the fouling, the ref's like, you know what? Instead of you shooting your free throws, I'm just going to change the score to now you're down one. You're down two. It's a one possession game. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was just up five possessions.
Yeah.
Harvick was up 5 seconds in a fluke caution. It's just, yeah.
And look, I understand it's going to happen. The thing is, like I said, I don't know. It's just, it can't just be me. I can't be the only one that gets screwed all the time. It's got to be.
There's got to be others. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, if somebody's out there that just loves the fact that these cautions come out late because you've won like 7 races that way in the past 2 years, then please tell me who you are, because I'm just the exact opposite. It just never, I mean, it'll happen. I don't even remember the last time it happened. It's just infuriating. And I could just imagine, I mean, you could even tell, what was that, Harvick's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I felt. That was my reaction in my room watching, because I was working and I had it's at the corner of my eye and I'm doing my work, and all I'm doing is just checking every couple of minutes. Just to, I don't want, if there's better not be a caution. That's all. And of course, I turned one head and I was like, of course, absolutely, of course. I freaking knew it. It's always going to be that way. So Kevin Harvick does not get. And look, we talked about Harvick and his previous history at the track. It's not that he dominated this race, but he kind of just timed it out perfectly. And and he's off to a great start this season. He really is.
Yes. He goes to show if he can get there in the championship 4, he will be a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because all we're going to look at, which if you look at his finishes, there's another fifth or worse finish at Phoenix. He could get to 5th, but these last 8 races, he just can't get better. But last year in that race, he was 3rd on the final restart. He just didn't have a car good enough, short launch speed. This year, he was leading. We just have to keep remembering. The finish might say 5th, but that's not indicative of how good he was. Larson, leap and bounds, had the best car. They were the top 2. They were the top 2 cars that should have been there in the end. And you look at the finishing order, they were 4th and 5th. That just kind of tells you everything you need to know. It's like the top cars were 4th and 5th. 3 other guys beat them that had no business beating them, but they did. So
I haven't done my futures yet for this week because I've been so busy that let's just make sure. Yeah, so I'm already up 600 on Harvick. CJ has not invested in Harvick as of yet. I didn't look at this week's yet. and you're up 1,500 on Harvick.
Yeah, I'm keep going on him.
I mean, how can you not? I mean, at 14-1 right now.
Yep.
Come on, man. I mean, this is the bargain right here. This is the one where if you're looking for any of these drivers at this point in time to take, if it's just one, you want to invest in one today, you must put money on Harvick right now.
Yeah, 5th, 9th, 5th are his 3 finishes on the West Coast swing. I take Daytona out because, like we said, Daytona is just Daytona, but he still finished 12th. So all of his finishes have been in the top 12. He's been there. He's doing what you need to do. And he does have a little bit of improvement, which that's a good thing because that means he's going to be gaining even more and more.
He hasn't won yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I look at somebody like Byron. Like we talked last week, is lightning really going to strike twice? It did. He got lucky again. But don't you think you hear this a lot too? Since NASCAR keeps getting compared to stick and ball sports, we've talked about this now that March Madness is coming. Do you peak too soon? That's a real thing. It seems like Byron is.
Yeah, he has to. He's got to prove that he can do this over a long. And nobody's telling him to win 10 races. No, but just be consistent.
I don't want to see him go 18 weeks without a top 5 like he did last year.
That's it. Yep.
Where Harvick is just sitting there, top 5, top 10, top 5. He's just
the fact that Byron is still 8-1 with 2 wins tells you that there's not a lot of faith in William Byron actually accomplishing. And look, maybe this is the year for Byron. We've been waiting for William Byron to put it all together. And maybe it's just our total lack of faith and our frustrations over, I'm not getting fooled again. No, I'm not getting fooled. Because how many times has he fooled us? It's like almost every year he fools us.
And they talked about that. Sunday was asked about that in the press conference. And he made a good point that he is still, he like us, wants to see the results. But his dad, Jeff Gordon, those around him keep telling him, look, you're still young at this. I think we forget that he's been in this. I think this is his 6th year in Cup. However, he's only been racing cars for a decade. He was doing the iRacing stuff. Then he went quickly up from the late model Legends to like the late models to the trucks 1 year, Xfinity 1 year, and then he's in Cup. So he's still very young at this. So part of me thinks, yeah, maybe he can break out. Maybe he's finally grasping it. And like Rudy Fugle, as crew chief said, they spent a lot of time this offseason. And because he's an iRacer, he can translate probably more to a sim rig to the racetrack than most others because he has that feel inside of a simulator and knows what it should feel like in the car.
Okay.
Well, all offseason, him and Rudy Fugle, that's all they worked on. Since we don't have much practice time, we don't have much testing, let's see if we can use this rig at our disposal, and let's really work ahead to see if we can get some things we like out of it. And the 2 tracks that they focused on early were these last 2. They said Daytona, wide focus area, because that's not a playoff track. Fontana's once, and then they're going to reconfigure. But Vegas and Phoenix were 2 tracks that they knew. Joey Logano won Vegas in the fall, and he took that to Phoenix for the championship race and won both. So they focused really big in those 2 areas. Well, look what he did. I wouldn't say he was necessarily a fluke winner per se.
No.
The fact that he led 176 laps in Vegas and 64 more last week. But
there's a difference between being a fluke and getting a little bit lucky, timing lucky. No, he was not.
He's been lucky. Yeah, he's been. Like you said, it's a great point. He's been lucky in the sense he's good enough to put himself there to capitalize on the luck. But I also wonder, how long can you? Lightning doesn't strike the same spot multiple
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
Twice is once, and it's Atlanta. Hey, he won here last year. He won this race. Can he go 3 straight? He's never won 2 in a row. Do we really think he's going to win 3 in a row? But that's just the nature we're getting at, and we'll segue into it. But Hendrick could have some drama surrounding them going into this race.
And that's another. See, that's another detail. Like when you lose to Hendrick, and then you hear Hendrick, oh wait, have they been doing something? Are they doing something they shouldn't be doing to their cars to make them faster? And then you're like, oh well, they're not going to give me my money back. So that's also frustrating when you hear that. But I mean, it's early in the process. So for anybody out there that hasn't been following this, because it's still early in the week, and again, there's a lot going on, especially if you're a diehard NFL fan. You got more than enough things, basketball and football, to preoccupy yourself with. So, what's going on there with Hendrick and some potential penalties?
Yeah, so there's a couple this week. They're not announced at the time of the show, so if you're watching this later in the week and you're like, what are these guys talking about? It's because it's Tuesday morning or early afternoon. It hasn't been announced yet. So Hendrick on Friday, before practice, NASCAR was just kind of doing random inspections in the garage, and those louvers, which is the little slits you see in the hood of the car. Sometimes you look real close, there's like the little slits.
Okay.
That's basically I can describe them. So that's a piece that slides into the hood. Well, NASCAR didn't like the way Hendricks felt. They pulled him out and like, I don't know if I like this. We're taking him. They took him across the board on all 4 cars and because that's a stock part. I don't know the exact manufacturer, so I don't want to butcher it, but that's a piece of this next gen. There's a lot of pieces to it that, hey, this is outsourced. This is coming from X company, and you're just to take it, open the box, put it on the car. Don't touch it other than that. Well, I think NASCAR feels that Hendrick manipulated it, and they didn't deny that they manipulated. The wording I have here from Jeff Gordon, that is, that NASCAR, a lot of times it takes a tip probably from somebody in the garage, and like, hey, you guys should go look at this. So NASCAR did, and like, we don't like these. So they took them. They took all four cars. So here's another one in its place. And Jeff Gordon, and what he said, and this is a quote, every situation is sort of unique, but this is more unique one than I've seen in a while, where there's been a lot of communication back and forth on this particular part, especially for this racetrack, because they did a parity test in the wind tunnel. I think it really opened up the door for some miscommunication. I don't want to go any further than that. We'll continue to share the facts and be transparent with NASCAR as we have been so far. So that tells me if you're innocent and didn't touch it, you had different wording. So they touched it. So people I've talked to have said, yes, they manipulated the part, but they didn't manipulate it for an advantage. They manipulated it because these parts sometimes are not coming to fit. So think of it like a puzzle. And you got a puzzle piece and it goes here, and you know it goes here, but it doesn't fit.
Yeah. Isn't it supposed to fit?
It's supposed to fit, but sometimes this manufacturer could have gotten a little slightly wrong dimensions or something.
So aren't they supposed to tell them, well, look, it's not fitting, give us another part?
Yes, and I'm wondering, and hence his miscommunication, if they didn't tell NASCAR
on purpose.
Yes, and they were like, well, let's cut the edges of this and force it, thinking they're working. Hey, look, they gave us the part, we've got to make it fit. So that's where this comes up, because last year, so NASCAR made a precedent last year. Don't touch these parts, or we're going to rule with the iron fist. Kozlowski coming into the Atlanta race, or after the Atlanta race last year, what happened to them is they had some bumper damage. But remember, the parts were limited. They were struggling to get parts last year because of the supply chain issue. So they fixed the part and put it back on. So it was kind of altered. NASCAR noticed it and like, well, we don't have another rear end for this car. We just kind of had to fix what we had. And they're like, you can't touch it. That's a 4-race suspension for your crew chief, $100,000 fine, 100-point differential.
Okay.
Big penalty.
Yeah.
So Gibbs cars, when you go to Pocono last year, they remember the DQs for the top 2 finishers, and they handed the win to Chase, not even leading the lap.
Yeah.
Well, Denny Hamlin
that helped out for people who won that week or lost that week. Yeah.
Yep. So Hamlin mentioned that was the front end of the car. He goes, that was a wrap. We didn't touch the part. We just added a little bit of the wrap to help. Yes, it helped, but that we didn't touch a part. And we got disqualified and lost crew chiefs.
Yeah.
And then Michael McDowell, they had a manipulated part. So they set the precedence. So an L2 penalty at the very minimum should be a 75 lost points for the driver and or team owner, 10 playoff points, 4-race suspension, and a $100,000 fine.
4-race suspension for who?
That would be the crew chief.
Okay.
So this is where we're getting on precedent here. There's also an L3, which you could fall under that too, which is a 120-point loss. 25 playoff points is basically 5 race wins. That's a massive. And if you look at the loss of 10 playoff points, William Byron, basically you're taking both William Byron playoff points wins away. There's 10 playoff points for that. So playoff points are huge. If you get 25, you're basically taking 5 race wins. That's going to affect them in the playoffs. 6-race suspension and a $250,000 fine. But where this is a little bit different is you're talking about a whole organization. So you got to think whatever penalty comes out, if it's along the lines of that L2 or L3, Hendrick's going to appeal to at least get the crew chiefs there. But there's a very real chance that you could have all 4 crew chiefs gone for a month, which is massive with that in the playoff point. So in saying that, this is where the controversy comes, is they didn't really get an advantage by this, because I think the stats go to show they took these parts away Friday before practice.
Okay.
So if you look at practice last week, Hendrick went I got it right here. 1-3 in practice, 1-3 in qualifying, 1-4 in the race, and they led 265 of 317 laps. So even taking the louvers away and giving them a new one to fit into that car, it didn't affect their speed. They were just as good as they were the week before in Vegas. So how do you penalize? What range do you go here? Because this is where I feel kind of bad for NASCAR in this decision here. You set the precedence for the penalty, but do you rule the iron fist when let's say it was truth. This part didn't fit. You gave me this part. It doesn't fit. I had to get it to fit. We can't show up to the track without it. So it didn't fit, and it never gave us an advantage for the way we did it.
Well, the first part, though, again, I'm NASCAR. You're pleading your case. Can I stop you there and go, well, why didn't you call?
That's where I would.
And have him FedEx more.
That's exactly right. Hey, look, because where you got to think, they probably tried it. I'll say this. I think they tried it to gain an advantage, and it probably proved that it wasn't an advantage one way or the other. I think maybe they did it to get an advantage.
Like they thought that, maybe we could
maybe
circumvent this.
And then you get it taken away, and they notice, hey, look, it didn't matter anyways.
Yeah.
But
that can't go. That's not going to work.
And I think that's probably what they were thinking. Let's not tell NASCAR this might give us advantage, and to find out it didn't really give you an advantage. But their shop is not far from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. NASCAR's headquarters, the R&D centers in Charlotte. You could have made a phone call and said, look, these aren't fitting. Come take a look before we do something with it. Yeah. Work with us here, because I think that's going to be the smoking gun, per se. And I do think the precedence is already there, because, look, if you don't penalize them if I'm Gibbs or these other teams, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Is this a stock part from a different manufacturer? And the answer is yes. Did they modify it to fit the car? Yes. Isn't that part of the rule? You can't modify a part.
Yeah.
So so that tells you there's probably an unprecedented penalty coming for them.
Sounds like it.
Does that, you look at these playoffs, now it's depending, is it L2 or L3? L2 still is a loss of 10 playoff points, which Chase Elliott, not saying he has any playoff points.
He's in enough trouble as it is.
He's going to be a negative 10. Because you got to take him away. So it's like, now you're saying he could get a win to get in, but he's got to get 3 wins just to get 5 playoff points on the positive side for the playoffs. So this could be a massive penalty, historic almost, coming their way. And losing all 4 crew chiefs for a month,
it's got to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen, because to me it sounds like, when you hear these athletes that get busted for amphetamines or any kind of drug similar to that, and they always say, I didn't know, I was taking cold medication, or I was doing this, that, and the other thing. And the answer, or my reply, if I'm on the side of if I'm the representing the company, I'm saying, just like you're saying there, with the excuse if you could have called for another part, is everybody knows nowadays, anytime you take a different medication or anything you put in your in your body, you must verify first.
Yep.
And if you don't verify first, don't come crying to me that you didn't know, because if you don't know that that's possible, that something is going to enter your body that you didn't even do any research on or check, that's not our fault. That's your fault.
That is. And on the flip side, you also have another penalty could be shaping with this, is the Denny Hamlin Ross Chastain thing, because he was overly honest, and it's fitting enough. Denny Hamlin with Dirty Mo, which is Dale Jr.'s group, he has his own podcast. The fitting name is Actions Detrimental. And well, a lot of people probably didn't even realize that Hamlin and Chastain had an issue in the final laps at Phoenix. And Hamlin has been, we know strongly against Chastain. They've had their run-ins last year.
You think?
Well, Hamlin decided in the race, he was on 2 tires, and he noticed, I'm a sitting duck. These guys are coming. So he decided if I'm going back, he's coming back with me. And this is his quote in his podcast. It wasn't a mistake. No, it wasn't a mistake. This is his words. I let the wheel go, and I said he's coming with me. It's been interesting because I hear people say this for the last year or this year. I got wrecked at the Clash. I don't know that Ross sees it that way. I think he's still curious about what I thought about the Clash. I don't know why he wonders what I thought about the Clash. I said for a while he's got to do something to get these guys' attention, whatever. I said it. I think that Ross doesn't like it when I speak his name in the media and when I have this microphone. I told him I have a microphone and I'm going to call it like I see it. Until you get a microphone, you can say whatever you want about me. The fact is, while I'm sitting here talking, I'm going to call things the way I see it. Sometimes I'm going to have to call myself out. And he basically keeps talking about that. But he talks about he purposely wrecked and ran Chastain wrong. He openly admitted that. However, NASCAR got wind of this. And Elton Sawyer, the senior vice president of competition, was on NASCAR radio this morning and said, oh, it's on their radar. They might have to take action to this. And according to section 4.4b, and this is what the rule says, a competitor can be fined 25 to 50 points, or a competitor be points taken away, 25 to 50 points, or fined 50,000 to 100,000 for a series of violations that includes, here's the wording, wrecking or spinning another vehicle, whether or not that vehicle is removed from the competition as a result. Pretty much you purposely wrecking somebody. He admitted to this on a podcast. So it's in the rule book and they've acted on it before.
What about the word series of?
That's what I kind of, there is.
Because a series of means more than just once.
Yes. And he tried it if you watch the video, he tried to put Chastain in the wall.
Oh, you mean series can mean one incident?
Multiple. Yes.
Not
I think
2 races or 3 races, just one race multiple times. Okay.
Yeah, and he did it probably 3 or 4 times.
This was on Sunday?
Yes.
That's the reason why Chastain finished all the way back 25th?
That's why. Yep.
Okay. I was wondering. I was like, because I got so upset, just focused
he was in the top 10.
What was going on with Harvick, that I just, as soon as I knew the race was over, I turned TV off. I turned the thing off and I deleted the damn thing. I ain't watching this anymore.
That's why. And NASCAR had the video. They actually tweeted the video of the onboards of both of them. And Hamlin, he just let him have it. I mean, here, and he said that he was dumb. He made a mistake. He got pinched to the wall with both of them. And then Chastain was brake checking him, and they finished in the back because of that. So there you go. He purposely sent Chastain, which if I'm a better and I had Chastain in the top 10, he was in the top 10 and Hamlin just took him out. So it's in the rules. So that's what is this going to be a week of some heavy penalties coming? Because according to the rule book, it is. But yeah, Hamlin and he went over the line, but this is where I had the issue with that is about, look, we've been looking for this. NASCAR got vanilla for 2 weeks. And he's got a podcast which is drawing a lot of attention to it. And it's called Actions Detrimental. If you penalize him, monetary or points, or both, are you kind of putting the muzzle on him from saying anything? Isn't this what we want? Don't we want drivers feuding?
Yep.
And now you're basically saying that, because if he doesn't say that, he's not going to be penalized or fined, because then it's like prove. I find it hard to believe you can go back and penalize something for something that happened days ago.
Now, where did you get the story from?
It's on the Dirty Mo.
So basically, a NASCAR site posted the story. Didn't come from like Chastain's people or anything like that.
No, this is straight from Hamlin. So he's got his own podcast.
No, what I'm saying is somebody had to have picked up what Hamlin said and put it out there on social media. Well, look what Hamlin said.
The own Twitter account for his show.
His own people.
Yeah, his own people.
Okay, so he's not only saying what he's saying, but he's also pushing it out there.
Yeah, they're promoting it.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, and then so NASCAR. Yeah, if you go in my article, it's out there right now. The 3 things, noteworthy things between last week and this week. I've got the article or the tweet embedded in there, so you can just click it and you'll hear what he said. So it got NASCAR's attention, and NASCAR was on. They usually early in the week are on the morning drive on NASCAR radio, and they're kind of talking competition updates and that kind of stuff. And that was discussed this morning.
Okay. Well.
So yeah, it's out there, and it's in my article. If you want to,
we'll put a link in the description area to check it out.
Just scroll down, you'll see it. It's the tweet's embedded in it. Just click the play button, it'll play it for you. But yeah, they're promoting it. So, and he said it, but I want drivers to be able to speak their mind.
Yeah,
and
right.
For him to speak his mind and get penalized for speaking his mind, because if he doesn't speak his mind, he's not going to get fined or penalized.
Yeah, there has to be a conversation between NASCAR and the drivers about this. Look, I don't mind. We don't mind if you speak your mind, but you don't say anything that is going to cause us to be put into this position where we have to do something about it, because we don't want to do anything about it.
No, there's probably got to be better wording probably use instead of using intentional. Yeah. Oh yeah, we had our issues. He knows where I stand, and he went in depth. I could have read a lot more, but there's probably 7 paragraphs of what he said about how he did it, why he did it, when he did it. He broke it down. He basically broke down every inch of how he did it and what he was trying to do.
It's crazy that these athletes nowadays it's one thing to be like a guest and you get paid to be a guest on somebody's show every week.
Yeah.
It's another thing that they're just gone crazy. They're doing their own stuff and again, they could even have their own segment on their own company and have a deal. But to just, this is my show. I sit in here every week. I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and I'm still actually participating in the sport. That, to me, would be, now, he's also the owner of his company, so he can't, was Michael Jordan going to come over to him and say, hey, Denny, but can't you wait till you retire? Yeah,
and you know what? And maybe he is, Corey LaJoie said on his, I think it was a podcast or XM radio or whatever it was this morning, and he's right. He just almost wonders if Denny did this on purpose. Like, he's got the money to pay the fine. He's like, look, we're talking about the 23rd and 24th place finishers right now, when we normally wouldn't. And look how much attention we're giving to that podcast.
Sure.
I mean, because the podcast name is Actions Detrimental.
Yeah.
That's basically, he's taken an action detrimental to. So is he spreading?
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah, but either way, it might cost them. According to the rule book, it could cost them $50,000 to $75,000 on this.
Now, the other situation to talk about is the zone infractions, the restarts specifically. I don't think not so much with the pits, but the restarts definitely, because again, we saw what happened with Logano and how it caused a major situation. And that's not unusual. So now they're talking about widening.
I'm talking about shortening it back up.
Okay, so they're definitely going to shorten it back up as opposed to...
Maybe. This week, they're going to look at it again this week and make a determination whether you just leave it or shorten it back up again. Because what they want... And honestly, again, this is where I say the double file restarts are good. I would think if you want to really eliminate some of this is you put the driver on the front row the row by himself, and you line him 2x2 behind him. Because what happens is, we all know a lot of these tracks are tough to pass on. So what drivers do is, there's a restart zone. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, if you just look on the track, sometimes the track will have it colored in green when they're coming off, or if they don't, just look at the Geico, because it's sponsored by Geico. It'll be blue, either on the wall or on the apron, and it'll say Geico. They have that zone to go back to green. So basically, the picture behind me, I know that's a finish, but let's pretend that's a restart.
That's a zone.
Yes. If they get to the end of the zone, which is usually a line before the start-finish line, and the leader hasn't gone, then the flagman will wave and you go. So you have from the end of that line to the beginning of the line. This year they widened it.
This is the first year they widened it.
The first year they.
Why did they widen it?
They try to make it a little more in the hands of the leader. Because if you're a leader, you're saying, if you give me a more space, I can play games. Because what happens behind is because, again, like I said, passing's hard. So if you're lined up behind here and they're going to go off in the zone and it's shortened, they all lag back a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you notice,
Trying
if
to
you look
time
at the overview,
yeah.
And then so what the leader is like, well, they're all jumping me. They all know I only have this little space. So if you lengthen it, if these guys are timing it, they can look in the mirror and they know. So if guys start lagging and they start making a run, and the minute they start lagging again, then they take off. So they know, like, oh, they're on their brakes. Now let me go. Because if they're already coming, you don't want to go because they're just going to end up passing you. So everybody's playing games on these restarts. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
But if you really watch a restart, these guys are playing games. So the lengthened zone is it puts it more on the leader. He could go in the middle if he wanted to. He could hit that line and go. But a lot of times they're playing the game. So what Logano did, and he didn't do anything wrong, according to these drivers have all said, like, look, he just did what I would have done. It's wrong, but he did what I would have done, is he let them all stack up behind him. And like, hey, they're going to make a run, they're going to stop, they're going to run again, and then I'm going to go at the very last minute. And it caused the stack up. So the drivers are like, can we just go back to the old way? Let's just clean this up because this could be an issue.
Yeah.
So they're going to look at it this weekend, and they're going to try to see because it's going to be wider again in Atlanta, do we need to address it or just leave it alone? So that's one of the issues they're going to look at, and we'll get a determining answer next week.
It's not as important, though, at like the Atlanta or the super speedways, right? Because you really need to take advantage at these other tracks any way you can.
And you really want to lock bumpers on a restart there anyways because it's a drafting package. It's the Atlanta or the Daytona Talladega package. So you kind of want somebody locking bumpers and going with you. So that's why this week was a little odd that they're going to look at it again. I would have waited till you kind of got because you got COTA next week, which is a road course. I would have gone through Atlanta, COTA, because COTA's got that long straight and that tight first turn. And then I think you got Richmond, Martinsville, Bristol dirt. I would have looked at it kind of in that factor.
Okay.
But I'm glad they're looking at it. I'm glad they're listening. And then the pit entry one, what you're referring to is it never happened last year because we had so many cautions. We never had a green flag pit stop. But as you remember watching the race, as we see behind me, that's kind of what the racing looks like there now, is if you have a green flag stop and these guys need to get to pit road, it's already bunched. How do you get to pit road without causing a huge chaos? Because at least Daytona and Talladega, you've got plenty of room exiting turn 4 before it. Atlanta is a mile shorter, and you're coming off turn 4, and that pit road's there to your left, and you somehow got to get slowed down. So the drivers were concerned about that last year. It just never happened, only because we had so many yellows.
Yep.
There never was a green flag pit stop. So what NASCAR said is you're going to go, the pit commitment cone is going to be in turn 3. So you're going to come down the backstretch, and if you want to pit, you're going to get on the apron.
Okay.
They're going to line up. So it kind of gets them out of the way, and there's the speed limit. So you're going to be on the speed limit then. So it's not like you're going to come flying around the apron.
Sure.
And then it's going to be like the pit speed road. It's right here. So the only thing where that has become an issue is there's no practice this weekend. It's just qualifying. So hey, the first time you're going to try it is in the race. Hope you don't forget. So that's where that is. So we'll see how that works because that could be something you might want to use elsewhere. If it works this week, why can't you use it? Because like IndyCar does it places like that, it's safer. Just get you out of the way. It's the same speed limit for everybody, so you're not really gaining or losing anything. Plus, I think it helps with, honestly, I can't stand these pit road speeding penalties. I hate that it's like you're watching a race and you're like, all right, which numbers am I going to write down that just sped on this stop? It's just, it ruins the flow and everything.
Yep.
Suarez last week, top 10, top 5 car. Not only did he speed, he came back down pit road and sped again. And it's just, most other series, it's like, get with the program. Like IndyCar, Formula One, these other series have a button you push. It's called a pit road limiter. And you push it, and it slows you to the zone you need to be in. You don't have to do anything. It
slows the car down.
Slows the car down.
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
You can be flat on the gas. It's still going to have, if you hit the button in time, you're just going to go the speed that is set for that pit
And so
zone.
why isn't NASCAR...
They go the old school that these guys don't even have speedometers in these cars. They're basically just guessing off RPM gauges.
Come on.
And that's why you're seeing these things.
Again, that's another reason, just like we just talked about at the beginning of the show, with the way that these races are, the outcomes of the races. This is just another example.
Yeah.
Is that, how is that? What if a driver with 20 laps to go pits and he's leading and he gets caught for speeding on pit road? Once again, you've completely manipulated the winner of the race.
That's where I'd rather, especially this week, if you're going to pit off 3, you're already going to be in the pit speed limit range, and you got the whole corner to be in it, so you're not going to be speeding on pit road because you've already been that speed. So as long as you're not speeding up, you should be fine. So I would hope that we limit the pit road speeding penalties this week. It's a lot safer, so I applaud him for that. But.
Well, it's another. Well, I mean, I would hope too. I mean, again, I understand, once again, if you're doing it at Phoenix or Vegas, the way those races are, you got to do whatever you can to try to cut the corner. But at Atlanta, Daytona, Talladega, you should never be speeding on pit road. You should never even come close. I'm sorry.
Yep. Just play it conservative, play it right, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
There'll be other ways to make it.
No reason to lose a lap on one of the, and then be caught in a bad draft. And no, it's just there's no reason. Okay. So before we preview the race, a couple other things. Last week we talked specifically about 2 stories. One was Chase Elliott. The other was Ryan Blaney. As far as Elliott's concerned, again, as we just mentioned, with some potential penalties coming down the road, it could get even worse. Well, his futures have not really dropped much yet. He's still at now 10-1. So I'm not sure what they're waiting for. But I guess there's enough people that are, I guess, still betting on him at 10-1. So, all right. But the other thing that we talked about was how much could his absence impact viewership. So it's been a few races. This is his home track. We know he won't be there again. By the way, is he still in California?
No, he's home.
He's home. He should be. He should be at the track on Sunday, to tell you the truth.
It would probably help either way. Of no matter what happens, the Hendrick penalty is going to be a huge story. Diverting the attention to him might be a better idea.
Right.
Let's put him in the press conference. Yeah. Let's let him answer questions about his leg. And let's divert that attention.
Yeah, right.
So it would be in his best interest to probably be at his home state race, even though he's not racing.
So how's the viewership been without him the last couple of races?
Not good. And it actually wouldn't be probably bad if Fox might put him – you got to put him in the booth instead of Danica. And then you might want to consider – because we all knew the ratings – it's hard to gain in this day and age. And NASCAR was gaining these last several years. And I kind of wonder, like, they aren't going to be soon hitting their plateau. I just can't see another million people watching it. So we're kind of – and they was down 8% for the Daytona 500. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. Not millions, but it was down. Fontana was down 5.6%. But when we talked about this was, what's the effect of Chase not being in the race? He's your 5-time most popular driver award winner, defending, that is. If he's not there, how many people are not going to watch because he's not there? Well, that news was announced the Friday leading into the Vegas race, and the viewership tumbled to 12% less. And then last week in Phoenix was 15% less. And this is over the numbers from the year before.
That's significant.
Yes, it was single digits for Daytona and Fontana. Now you're double digits. Now you're from the year to end, so or year to date. So you got Vegas spring race last year, 12% less viewership than this year than last, and Phoenix is 15%. I have to think Chase Elliott's a big product of that number going the way it is, because it was 8% in Daytona, basically 5.5% in Fontana. So is it half that number probably for those races? I'd say it's probably a fair guess, and it went from 5.6 to 4%.
Oh, it sounds like it.
So
the only other thing I can think of is let's see what happens this week, because if you're a fan, if a lot of those are just, again, we're assuming they're diehard fans because obviously they're Elliott fans. So if we're going to assume that, then we're also going to assume that they understood, especially how it bottomed out from Las Vegas to Phoenix. They knew what Phoenix was.
Yes.
It was pretty bad and boring. Yep. So, but they also knew Atlanta wasn't boring.
This will tell you what they think about the racing.
This will tell us whether or not it's all about Elliott, or some of it's Elliott and some of it's the regular down tick, but some of it's also because nobody wanted to pay attention to a race in Phoenix anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what tells you either, because we even talked about the new package. It almost would tell you, too, they've got no faith in NASCAR. We kept saying all this new package.
Yeah, right.
And they still didn't tune in. So
yeah, the only thing that actually looked like that happened was that it seemed to take away the edge from Ford.
Yes.
And then Chevy was back in the front, but then again, now so
it's still cited for one manufacturer because Toyota still led 0 laps. It's the same amount they led laps.
Yeah.
Did it help them? It helped Chevy, and Ford took a massive step back.
Yeah.
Granted, if that caution doesn't come, Ford wins the race with Harvick, so that tells you he's kind of in the running. But it also goes to show, because you got Martinsville and Phoenix as your final 2 races again this season. And that basically, without a fluke caution, which we don't see a lot of fluke cautions in the championship race because drivers are kind of, if you're not in the championship round, you're kind of just
driving.
I'm just looking forward to my vacation.
Yeah.
I'm just here. It's the
Sunday
old
drive.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
I'm just here to finish this out. But that kind of tells you whoever's basically leading the halfway point is probably your guy. So you can't have your championship race looking like that. So they're going to show if these ratings. I think last year Atlanta got over 4 million viewers. I'll have to look.
Okay.
They got a lot of viewers because of the excitement that this was supposed to bring, and it worked. So let's see. Let's see if that viewership naturally. Do I think it's gonna be over 4 million? No, but let's see how
much of a drop.
Decrease.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious with the attendance because
that's true.
It's their hometown guy.
Well, that's why you want to announce as soon as possible if he's going to be there that he's going to be there.
He needs to have an autograph session in a Hendrick merchandise hall or something to get people.
They have to take advantage of that. They
have
to.
If they don't, then that also shows
that's bad.
They're turning a deaf ear because I think you have to have them there. You have to have a meet and greet. You have to have an autograph session. You need to have them in the media center for a press conference to divert attention from here. And Fox needs to have them in the booth. You need to get them in the booth at some point because if they don't do any of the above, then you're wasting out.
Yeah, that's I don't even want to think about that, but you never know. And then Blaney. Now Blaney ended up with a top 10 car, but because of the late caution, ended up second. And he was that close. If he could have gotten just a little bit closer to Byron, then he would have done anything he could have to win that race. Because Larson was doing okay, getting close to Byron, but you knew there was only so much he could do. They're teammates, even though Larson's done it before to his teammates. But Blaney almost was able to steal that race based on that. That would have been really theft if he would have been able to steal that race.
It would have been. And I look at and I wonder this, and it's one of those things like, I'm not going to make a story out of it because it's speculating, but if that was anybody but William Byron he's battling there, and I should say other than Byron, Hendrick, or Logano, a teammate, would he have moved them? Because he was side by side. And the reason I say this about Byron is William Byron's girlfriend is Ryan Blaney's sister.
Aha.
So I was wondering if I could see, because at first I'm like, he's going to move him. We all picked him and he's going to get the win. Because he needed a win, and we talked about the aggression of Blaney and that would have been his moment.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm sick of losing. I got
this
winless streak.
Absolutely.
I'm sending you off into turn 1. I'm going to punt you that way, and I'm going to go win. Because he could have. But I don't think you can do it to your sister's boyfriend. Longtime boyfriend. They've been dating a while. So I don't think that would probably go over well.
It looked like, I don't know, like when I saw him get close, honestly, I wasn't really and then when Byron started to pull away again, I wasn't really thinking you ruined your chance. I was just guessing that now I'm close to him. I think I can pass him, or I'm there. I don't have to put him into the wall just yet.
No.
And I think what my guess is he thought Byron was not going to pull away that quickly.
No.
And that's what happened because Byron had a better car than he did.
He did, and that's where I look at, and unfortunately, that's what NASCAR's become. That's why the Joe Logano's and the Kyle Bushes and Hamlins are successful. Is they're not afraid to move you. They know Blaney should have been told that dude bled over 60 laps and won the first stage.
That's
he's
true.
got a better car than you.
Yeah. If you even get close to him, yeah.
You've got to, unfortunately, rough him up to win your race.
Yep.
You're not going to beat him on speed. And in the old days, that was the way that people raced. They raced with respect. This new NASCAR, you don't see that a lot. So I applaud Blaney for racing him clean. I do. Like, that was a pure finish. But I think we've seen more times than not drivers are just going to run through you because, and I would have thought Blaney's riding. He hasn't won since the 2021 regular season finale, and you're there, and we know how much it stung him last year there to let Logano win so he can win the championship. You're there again, and it's like, man, two situations you can't move the driver to win, and you never know what the rest of the season can hold.
Sure.
But if he goes winless again, those 5 playoff points could have helped him.
Well, I think that if it was November, that
he would
would
have
have been
had
different.
Yeah.
And I also think that maybe if he was having a really good day,
True.
maybe he would have felt like, no, I'm winning this race.
Yep.
Instead of, well, he hadn't even been up there all day. And again, but this is what we've talked about with Blaney too. I'm not trying to get him off the hook, but the fact is that he's just not built that way yet.
No.
And
he's a nice guy. He's almost, unfortunately, his nice personality. He's a great guy. Kind of sometimes doesn't clash.
Yeah, you almost get the feeling like something has to happen to him on the race on the somewhere that somebody just does something.
Somebody's got it wrong.
Like a Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson situation.
Well, we talked about this. I remember one of the first years I was on this show was when Chase Elliott and Hamlin got into their spat at Martinsville in that playoff race. And remember, we talked then, like, when is Chase going to close this out? When is Chase ever since that moment, if you look at people that have been more spats than anybody other than Logano, is Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to rough anybody up anymore. Logano's that way. And you look at the champions of this sport, Kyle Busch has been that way. You just go right there since 2019. You got Kyle, Chase, Logano. Larson's a nice guy, but I think we saw he will run people wrong.
Oh, yes.
That's the last 4 champions. If Blaney wants to take that next step, unfortunately, he's got, and maybe it's, like you said, maybe somebody's got
I think so, because he hasn't really, I don't recall many times where Ryan Blaney has had a great car and somebody's run him off the road.
No.
It's like, I think because maybe he's a good guy, nobody really gets.
Nobody runs him.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. So, yeah, because we said the same thing also about Logano. I know it was before we were doing shows, but that was the deal with Logano back in those days. Man, was he a whipping boy.
Yeah,
Man, we remember those days, especially when there was fighting.
Yeah.
Was he getting his ass kicked?
He was the guy get punched. Yeah, because people were overrunning him. And I feel like not Larson, I was looking at Larson on my sheet. Blaney gets taken advantage of that way a little. I think Byron made that move to kind of like he's not going to wreck him. He can run him hard. And we've even seen that of Byron. I mean, Byron was aggressive with Kyle to get the lead. And that's the new NASCAR that it's got to be. And Blaney drives the old NASCAR, which unfortunately just isn't quite good enough anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it kind of opened my eyes is, well, no wonder Blaney's in this situation. No wonder he can get to the round of 8, but he can't get to the championship because in the round of 8, you've got to have the elbows out and your fist ready. And he just, I don't want any of that. And it's going to take somebody to wrong him.
I think so.
The problem is he's got a lot of friends
he
in that
does,
drive.
too many.
Going to wrong him.
Yeah.
It's weird saying that, like, oh, I need the nice guy to be mean. But I think that's the only thing holding him back now is that would have sent a message to the garage. Hey, I don't care. Let's be honest. Let's put it the other way around. If that's Tony Stewart, I'd recommend my mom to win a race. Hey, I don't care he's dating my sister. Yeah. I'm going to wreck him, and I'm going to go win this race because I'm sick of losing. And that would have sent a message to everybody else, like, oh, this guy's not playing around. So I think it could send that message, too, the other way. Like, oh, yeah, Blaney's not going to wreck anybody for this win.
It's got to happen.
We'll see how that progresses. It's got to happen
Something's
sometime.
got to happen.
This week isn't the one to do it, though, in Atlanta.
No.
I do not recommend wrecking somebody on purpose.
No,
here.
he can do it at one of those tracks that he's not very good at.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is as good a time as any to start previewing the race, even though you would have thought we'd be done with the show already, previewing the race. But a lot to talk about. So, again, playbooksports.com. Want to thank them for sponsoring this segment. And you can check out Playbook Experts as well. By the way, we do post separate videos from these shows at playbookexperts.com. So if you're one of those fans out there that you're like, all right, just get on with the picks. Come on, I just ordered the picks. Well, you could check out Playbook Experts. I usually post it up there later in the week, though, just the picks talk. So you can check that out as well. All right, now there wasn't a lot of research that needed to be done this week because there's really only 2 races that we should be looking at with Atlanta, and that's last year. I don't care what happened past last year. So
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it really won't matter past that.
No.
This is it.
So last year, what we know is that, once again, Chevy was absolutely dominant. In July, they were 4 of the top 6 finishers, including the winner, and that was Elliott. In March, they were 5 of the top 6 finishers, including Byron, the winner in that one. In the Xfinity Series, Chevy had 6 of the top 9 in March with a win and had 7 of the top 8 in July and the win. That's how dominant Chevy was both on Saturday and Sunday at Atlanta. And so, but you do now. Let's start with this. So, the good thing is, if you're a Hendrick fan, is even if you get bad news about the penalties and whatever have you before this race, it's not going to affect this race. And so don't be looking at it as they're taking a part out and now they were faster before, but now NASCAR's found something and now they're going to be slower this week. That's not going to come into play at all. So
it showed last week that part was irrelevant.
Yes.
If anything, it would almost make them want to win more to get playoff points back.
There you go.
Yes. It might light another fire under because this penalty, no matter what happens, is not going to affect the way I think of their speed because I know Sunday just proved that part had 0 to do with their dominance this season. So, and also you look at too, Chevy has won 78 stages this year. They've won all 4 of the races. And if you look at super speedways last year, who won the fall Talladega race? Chase Elliott, Hendrick, Chevy. Who won the Daytona summer race? Austin Dillon, Chevy. Who won the Talladega spring race? Ross Chastain, Chevy. So the only race of the next gen era that Stenhouse won the Daytona 500 this year. The only time in the next gen era that a manufacturer not named Chevy won was Hendrick in the 2022 Daytona 500. Everything else since Atlanta, Daytona, Talladega, all Chevy. This year has been all Chevy. So I would struggle to say that anything other than Chevy, especially when Toyota I have here, has not won in Georgia or Atlanta. Granted, we can say this, they didn't win last year, so that's all that matters. But they didn't even win in the old package. It was 2014 was the last time a Toyota won in
the old package.
Even the old package. At Talladega, they're 2 for their last 17, and at Daytona, they're 1 for their last 8. So, knowing that, we knew they weren't really going to be really good in Phoenix, and they weren't. So those trends have all carried over that I think your pick is between a Chevy and a Ford. And granted, with all the Chevy talk, I would, which we'll get into, we're starting with the Chevys, is I think that's probably your way to go.
Before we do that, and now CJ's picks are back. So now that he's back, and by the way, CJ's going to he's going to have his recorded F1 report to preview the race this weekend. That'll be on Friday, I believe. So not only is CJ back giving us his picks on time, but he is also going to be raring to go for the rest of the season with F1 reports if you're a big F1 fan. So check that out. All right, now. And by the way, before we move on, also I don't push this all too often, but hey, man, if you really like what you see, subscribe to the channel. Very important. We really appreciate that. Also, we're going to let you know about some comments that were made and some questions. So we're going to get into that in a little bit before the show is over. We appreciate that. That's awesome. Same thing for hitting the thanks button and donating to the channel is also great. The like button is awesome. That's also very important. By the way, we're getting close to 2,000 subscribers now, so we're getting close. So let's see if we can get over the hump sometime real soon. As far as subscriber traffic is concerned. How many now with CJ back? That makes it a little easier for us to kind of connect with more. Well, actually, it's harder to tell you the truth because we have an extra person that may or may not like the same drivers we like. So we had only 4 this week.
I was going to say guess 5, so that's close. So 4.
All right. And let me see how many me and you had. So me and you, that would have happened. Let's see. We would have had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You and I would have 7, but with CJ coming in, it's 4. So what are the 4?
Byron?
No.
Blaney?
I'm the only one that didn't do Byron.
I would have presumed Blaney.
Yes.
12-1. Yep. Chastain?
Mm-hmm.
Bowman?
Yep.
3, so one more.
One more. It's a long shot.
LaJoy?
No.
Haley?
Yes.
There it is. I knew it had to be a 50 to 1.
3 Chevys and Blaney.
And Blaney.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then the 7, just you and I, that would have been Buescher, Suarez, Jones. Yeah, those are the other 3.
I'm shocked CJ didn't go with at least 2 of those guys.
The ones I just mentioned? Well, that's because they're longer shots, and CJ he sticks with.
He goes to top. Yeah.
He actually did his same routine he does at the super speedways, where he goes with like the top 8, 10 drivers and odds.
Yeah.
Because it's that one of those. It is going to be. It's not. I don't think it's as. It's not as big a crapshoot as Daytona or Talladega, but it's close.
It could, yeah. Because there's a lot of guys there on this sheet. There's a lot of sleepers that could win. I mean, look at Corey LaJoy last year. He had a chance to win this race. And we just talked about how Toyotas, you could kind of punt on them out of there. And you just get a lot of even the bigger name drivers left. Like Harvick hasn't been great there. Almirola hasn't been great there. Chase Elliott's not in it. It kind of takes a lot of these top guys out of it, and you get some good guys at 50 to 1.
Especially if they're Chevy.
There are some good odds here for if you want to go deeper in the pack for
and I would do that myself. I mean, I don't have a problem putting a buck or 2 on Berry or LaJoy and so forth. So, but it's just the way it worked out this week. And I see that you even put again. I usually put big money, but I see that you've actually you had 3 drivers that you put 17 each on.
Yeah.
And I had 2 at 25 each, and 1 at 13. So. That's why we don't have as many drivers as CJ for that reason. So, all right, we'll start with Hendrick, and why not? So Byron 2 for 2 in his last 2. That's just the reason I stood away from him. I mean, at 10 to 1 in a race that is going to be a little bit kind of like a crapshoot, I'm just not going to go for 3 for 3.
I almost did it because of that. I'm like, we talked last week. Can he really win 2 in a row? And he did. Yeah. And I'm like, can he really win 3 in a row? But I'm at least getting him at 10 to 1 for 3 in a row. And he led 111 laps last year, so it's like that's where I struggle. And Hendrick has been so good. I mean, they've led out of the last 2 weeks 87% of the laps, 506 to 579. They went 1, 2, 3 in both stages in Vegas, 1, 2 in both stages last week in Phoenix. They've just been so good. All 4 cars in the top 10. That's like somebody's got to win. And we know Kyle Larson. This isn't his cup of tea.
Yes, which is really once again, and we stayed away from him again. Why not? I mean, look, again, I know Atlanta's not Daytona Talladega yet, and maybe it never will be, but it's still a similar type of, and all you had to do was look at his results here last year.
Yeah, 30th and 13th.
Come on, man. I mean, you can't be putting Larson at the co-favorite at this track.
No.
You just can't do
it.
And
I keep going, like I did in Daytona. I said this over and over, and he didn't do it again. 1 top 5, and now 36 drafting track starts. So that's 36 starts at Atlanta, in this package, Daytona and Talladega. He's got 36 races on those tracks. 1 top 5. And he's a co-favorite. That's just like, there's absolutely
no way.
He's 0 for 36 and wins. I was like, get yourself a second top 5 before I even contemplate. Yeah. But 10 to 1, like that, that was the quickest no I've ever had. Like, no, not for 10 to 1.
Yeah, Byron
like
definitely, but not Larson.
Yeah, so it's like somebody's got to win out of that camp. So I'll just roll with the 10, at least roll with the 10 to 1 factor.
Well, again, we all had Bowman, and this is the thing that's like, well, why not? He's double the price of Larson. He's a better racer than Larson at these tracks, and hey, by the way, if anybody's noticed, he's leading in points.
Yeah.
So he's actually having a pretty good start to his season, and this would be a perfect race for him to carry the mantle of that Hendrick banner in victory lane again.
And he's also the only driver to have a top 10 in every race. And he was, oh, by the way, 5th in Daytona 500, a track that he's always struggled at. I don't think he had a top 10 in Daytona before he gets 5th. And then Atlanta, Ingrid, he was 10th in this race last year. So it's not like he was bad. He was 10th still. We saw what Hendrick could do. Chase Elliott won the summer race. Chase Elliott's not in this race. So, again, somebody's got to win out of the Hendrick camp, and you're getting double the odds for the points leader. And even so, you want to granted, we keep saying, and we're right, you cannot talk about prior to 2022 here. But you can talk about confidence in going to a place. Sure. And if you look at 2021, his finishes there were 3rd and 4th. So it's like, well, he's got confidence there. So he clearly knows how to. 3 of his last 4 have been in the top 10 there. And in this race last year, he only got a top 10 all season.
What happened? Do we remember what happened? Because there were some wrecks last year.
I think he got caught up in a wreck. He started 8th. He qualified 8th, so he was up front too.
Okay.
So I like him for 20 to 1.
20 to 1 is the deal. If he's 10 to 1, that's a different story. But you're getting 20 to 1.
It is 20 to 1. So that's the reason why I obviously went big with him. And then Josh Berry, again, he's in a car that won this race, was the summer race last year, and he also in the Xfinity race finished 2nd. Yep. He led 13 laps. So he's finding momentum. He was in the top 10 last week in Phoenix. We know what the car can do. We know this is a drafting track. This isn't necessarily one he's going to go out there and get you. It's mash the gas pedal and go. So if attrition happens, he's in the car. Who's to say?
50 to 1.
Yeah, so that's why I went his direction.
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. Also, sticking with the Chevys, Kyle Busch is 12 to 1, and Dillon at 40 to 1 for RCR. Both of them, if you look at the results last year for both drivers, was really bad. Of course, Kyle's with Reddick's car, but Reddick wasn't very good here last year either. At least Kyle came back with an 8th place finish last week, which was okay, even though he never really competed for the win. But yeah, I just with Kyle, I need to see a little bit more still. I think he's in good shape, but at 12 to 1, there's a bunch of other drivers that I can go to. I don't really need to be. There's no reason to really go with Kyle this week in my mind.
No, not at 12 to 1. That was a little steep, especially 33rd and 20th last year.
And he already has a win on the season too. So
yeah, and he's admitted that these type of drafting tracks are not strong suits for him. Granted, he should have won the Daytona 500, but this has not been a good track for RCR lately either. Austin Dillon hasn't been particularly good there. He was 35th in both races last year. As you said, Reddick wasn't great in this car last year. It just kind of all adds up.
By the way, thanks for reminding me about the Daytona 500. I didn't, if Kyle could have won that and Harvick would have won last year, I could have had a really good season so far this season, and I just keep getting screwed up at the end of the races. So
Yep, you would have had it. But yeah, I don't feel like 12 to 1 is the right number.
It's just there's other weeks that he's going to be 12 to 1 and 10 to 1.
There are.
And he's going to be a better odds on history chance to go with in this week. Yeah, and Dillon is just real. I don't know what happened, because Dillon is good usually in these packages, but I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just bad luck that he got into wrecks last year.
He did. I remember that big one in July race. He hit hard over there in turn 2. But it wasn't like he was a factor to win. He's probably a top 10 car. Was he going to win? He didn't have Chase Elliott or Corey LaJoie or that kind of speed. He was there, but he got caught up in wrecks, and I think that's with this track, which it's one of my burning questions that are coming out Friday's article, or maybe Thursday. But why is Atlanta tougher than Daytona and Talladega? People might want to look at Daytona and Talladega package. You do want to look there, but the main difference of why this one's tougher is it's a mile shorter in length. So that makes it more challenging. At least Daytona and Talladega, you got the wider turns, an extra mile. It's a mile. It's more real estate to work with. Atlanta, it's like a bull ring. These guys are cruising around there, and a wreck in Atlanta is even harder to avoid because you're only going. I don't think you could really fit 3 wide for very long there with something bad happening. And the track's been repaved. There's so much grip. There's no tire fall off. So you just have no time to breathe. You're just constant. So that's another reason why they shortened this race from 500 miles to 400 miles. So.
Another 100. No, thank goodness they did that. Yeah.
Take it off. Because I looked too, last year's race was 4 hours in duration, the 500 miles. It had 11 cautions for 65 laps. Now, the summer race, it's 100 miles shorter, but it was only 40 minutes quicker because there was 13 cautions for 64 laps.
Okay.
So this is going to probably
Caution
have
fest.
some carnage.
Yes.
So it's going to take some luck. So I feel like to take luck, you got to be at the front. You got to be consistently there, and those guys are not consistently there. So I think it's better to go with somebody you trust a little bit more.
Well, Trackhouse, off to, as we've said all along this season, they're off to a really good start. The team of Chastain and Suarez. And this is, without question, the week to take them both. Chastain 12-1, Suarez 25-1. They both were excellent here last year. Chastain finished second in both races last year. Suarez top 10s in both races last year, including fourth in, I believe, the March race. At 25-1 with Suarez, that's easy. And Chastain, this is the reason why you can bypass Kyle in a way, because you have someone like Chastain who's also 12-1, who's a much better bargain at that price. And I was happy to see Chastain at 12-1, and I understand why. Again, based on the track, the way that it is, that's why the odds come out the way that they do. But there's no way Ross Chastain should be getting 12-1 and Kyle Larson getting 10-1. So we'll just keep slamming that thing as much as we can because this is a good one.
Yeah, Chastain should probably be 10-1 with Byron. It should at least Larson shouldn't even be 12-1, but they at least should flip. He led 42 laps in the spring race. This one, he led 32 laps in the summer race. He was there to win both. This car, Kurt Busch drove in 2021, won there. So this car has had 3 straight top 2 finishes.
There you go.
And we just talked about Chevy being the top manufacturer. And if Elliott's out and we don't trust Byron to go 3 straight, Chastain's the next guy up probably. And if not him, Suarez led 13 laps in this race last year. He started 7th and finished 6th in the spring or in the summer. Chastain started 2nd in the summer race, so they qualify well, they lead a lot of laps, and they finish well. And Suarez being 25-1 with, we talked earlier, if it wasn't for the pit road speeding penalties, he probably was in the top 10 again.
There you go.
Phoenix, he would have a top 10 in all 4 races this season. So I like that for 25-1. That's slam dunk to me.
Yeah, you got to take the team right there this week, no question about it. Yeah, you put 17. That's the most, tied for the most that you invested this week, and I put 25 tied for the most that I put on my top 2 drivers this week as well. Spire Motorsports, and we're going to talk early about them this week, and why not? And that's because this is a Corey LaJoie race. This is a race where if you're going to take Corey LaJoie a couple times this season, this is one of them. 5th in this race last year. And things are going okay. I mean, he's in the top 20 in points, and you would think, well, that's not all that great. Well, he's usually, 28th or 27th. Yeah. Now he's 18th. So he has shown a little bit of an improvement. But if he wants to be serious about being hey, man, we've really turned the corner, and we're going to be a playoff contender. Well, this is the type of race that he's got to do well at. Ty Dillon is 250-1, but Ty is just not. He's not in any way, shape, or form getting off to the type of start that Corey LaJoie has.
No, and these aren't his great tracks. So Ty I punted on, but like you said, LaJoie was 5th in this race last year, and the only reason he was 21st in the summer was, remember, he wrecked with Chase Elliott going for the win on the final lap.
Okay, there you go.
He was 2nd, and he led 19 laps. He was in the top 5 for much of that final stage. So he should have had 2 top 5s in last year. And we know Daytona, he's phenomenal at. So if you're going to use that same package and you're getting the guy for 50-1, that's a no-brainer. It's baffling to me that he has he has more top fives on super speedways than Kyle Larson has, and he's 50-1 and Larson's 10.
Yeah, right.
That just shows you how backwards it is. He's a better bargain on a super speedway than Kyle Larson, and so I love him at 50-1.
It's probably one of those situations too where if you're ever going to roll the dice, let's say you have some extra funds in your sportsbook account and you want to roll the dice every once in a while. I mean, this is the perfect time to roll the dice. Because say, you know what, it's regular week. All right, I don't have a whole lot, so I'll put at least $1 on LaJoie, maybe $2. But if you want to go for it, this is the type of week to go for it with LaJoie. Put $10 on him. See if you can make $500. You know, so why not? So, all right, Stenhouse. Yeah, big surprise. No top 10 since Daytona 500. Boy, man, he just turned the corner after that Daytona 500 win.
Right back to where we thought. And this is not a week for him when he was 31st in both races last year.
Surprising.
Yeah, he got caught up in wrecks.
Okay.
He led 22 laps in the spring race, but caught up in a wreck. There's a reason that his name used to be Ricky Stenhouse instead of Ricky Stenhouse known. So I just, on a track that much shorter than the bigger ones, and he kept finding trouble at the bigger ones. I just don't
stay away from him.
Yeah, Byron getting lightning striking twice. I don't see it striking twice for Stenhouse in 5 races.
Maybe he could maybe he could be the one that gets into Ryan Blaney. And
you never know. Maybe But for 30-1, it just was. There was no way I was touching that for 30-1.
Calling, you got AJ and Haley, and again, I put money on Haley. To me, with my money situation, it was between Haley and LaJoie. And I went with Haley because Haley was also solid here last year. But again, it doesn't mean I'm not going to put money on LaJoie because I will. And AJ was 3rd in the Xfinity Series in March. And, he could be okay in these races. So, but they have not gotten off to the start that they wish that they would have gotten off to, either one of these guys. So this is a big race for both of them.
And Haley, out of his 8, I know I talked about this for Daytona, at his 8 career NASCAR wins, we're talking Xfinity Series included too, 5 of them were at drafting tracks. And you look at how good he was there last year. He's a strong play at 50-1 too. So you have to go his direction. If you go LaJoie, you have to go Haley. To me.
Go with both of them. Might as well.
Yep.
Because Jones is the other good long shot, but he's a little less at 30-1, and that's because he was solid in both races last year. This is also going to be a big race for Jones because they have been struggling so far. They have to accomplish something because also Noah Gragson actually raced twice last year here. So he has some experience here.
He does. And Jones, Grayson's been frustrating in the sense he's 32nd in points, 24th, 22nd, 30th, and 29th are his finishes. So that has been disappointed. But I look at Jones a little more disappointing because Grayson's, at the end of the day, he's a rookie. Granted, he ran for Hendrick last year, but Jones looked really good last year. And this year, he's 28th in points. He's only 4 spots better than a rookie teammate. 37th, 19th, and 21st are his finishes. But here last year, he was 4th in the summer, and he led 10 laps. And he was 14th in the spring. So I'm really looking for him to at least make a difference on Sunday. And he was up front, so for 30-1, to me, that's a better value than what you're getting for Stenhouse because the proof is in the pudding with him.
We move from Chevy to Toyota, and we'll start with Wallace and Reddick. And, they're both still not where they want to be for sure, but at least Reddick is headed in the right direction, coming off the 3rd place finish last week. Wallace had a couple of top 15s here last year. Reddick now in a different car, but as we said with Kyle Busch, it didn't matter. And by the way, in the different car, he was pretty bad too. The only good thing about both of these drivers are the odds. So you're getting 18-1 with Reddick and 20-1 with Wallace. I decided to put a little bit of money on Wallace because he's shown that not only, of course, on the super speedways, but even here, I believe, even though he had those top 15s, he had some pretty good momentum here. So I thought, okay, I'll put some money on one of these guys, and I decided to go with Wallace.
Yeah, that's the smarter way. I almost went with Wallace. I just ran out of money to go his way. I mean, because you remember, right, he was second coming to the white flag at this race last year. He just got wrecked on the final lap coming to the checkered. So he was there, 14th in the summer race. This has typically been a good track for him in general. And he said he's good on drafting tracks. Reddick, I was shocked they weren't flipped because Reddick didn't even finish the top 25 in either Atlanta race last year. He wrecked in the Daytona 500. And we noticed, I remember talking after Daytona that after Fontana, 5 of his last 7 races, counting Fontana. So these last 2 he has, and he crashed in Fontana too, so that's wrong. 5 of the last 7 prior to Vegas, then he was involved in a crash.
That's true. Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So on a track like we just talked about behind me, that's shorter. Wrecks happened.
Watch out.
He wrecked last year. I just feel like he's better odds of a wreck than a win, where Bubba has probably better shots than a win than a wreck on the other way around. He seems to be a little more methodical on these tracks.
I don't know.
And he gets better the
I
odds.
agree with that, and I do think even more so. I think Reddick should be more like, tell you the truth, 25-1.
Yeah. I'd be a little more interested. It baffles my mind that somebody, again, you're kind of using name recognition with Reddick, that Suarez had the stats that we just talked about.
Yeah, they should
25-1.
Yes.
Yes, I would think that should be the other way. So I'll take the bargain on Suarez, but Reddick, that just not 18-1.
Joe Gibbs, and it's very rare that I'm going to go an entire race, any race at all, and not pick a Joe Gibbs driver. Because especially with Denny Hamlin there, and especially with the fact that Hamlin is usually really good at these types of tracks. But 29th and 25th last year was all I needed to see, including Bell, 23rd and 19th last year. And we know Martin Truex and drafting tracks. So I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to stay away from all 4 of these Toyota drivers and that's why I boosted up a little bit more money this week on guys like Blaney and Chastain.
Same. Yeah, the Gibbs guys, like I said, the Toyota trend that we talked about at the start of this just doesn't already favor them.
No top 5s this year for Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex Jr.
No, 3 of their 4 finishes have been 11th or worse. They just need to get a top 10 rather than focus on a win. And they've got the bad luck too. And this track is going to take some luck. I just don't see them winning. And Truex, we talked about his heyday, back when this was just a normal mile-and-a-half track, that he back in 2015, 16, 17, 18, like he was great. We call him like the intermediate king. He was winning everywhere. He never won here. He's 0 for 26 in Atlanta.
Combo.
This just has not been a good track for him in general.
Gibbs might be the best choice here because you're getting 60-1.
Yeah, if you're going to go with one, it might be him. And he won the Xfinity race there last year. But again, I look at this guy's overly aggressive too.
Yeah, right.
if somebody's getting caught up in a wreck, it's him too. So I just don't feel good about the Toyotas this week.
Ford, we'll go with Ford now. RFK, Keselowski, and Buescher. And I was close to putting money on Keselowski, and then all 3 of us would have had money on Keselowski. You and I put money on Buescher. It's just, I don't know, it was a combination. It was really what it was it's just, I wasn't really, I know 18-1 is normally a good number, like we said with Reddick in a way, because of how good Reddick normally is. But I just thought, I can do better than 18-1 at Keselowski. That's a little low for me, considering the team, and he hasn't won in over a year and a half. But I think, if you guys took him, and I understand completely why. And Buescher's, I just felt I got a little bit more money with Buescher. So I'll put $4 on him, try to make my money back. But I could have seen myself putting a little bit of money on Keselowski as well.
I actually went Keselowski over Wallace. That was my final too.
Okay.
I was like, where do I? And that was only because he was 12th in this race last year, and that was kind of at their low. They were still learning each other. And I look at what RFK did at Daytona, and they were 1-2, and RCR was 3-4, and they were there. And Keselowski's won the spring race in Atlanta twice. Granted, it's the old package, but my determining factor with them was Keselowski has won 7 races on drafting tracks, and Wallace has won 1. Yeah. And I'm like, it's a better, and you're getting the same similar odds, 18-1 and 21. I'm like, he's running better. He led the only laps that Ford led in Vegas. He was running he was one of two other Fords, other than, him and Harvick at Phoenix, the one that lead laps. So he's leading laps. He's kind of running there. So if people take themselves out, I don't think he's going to win just baseball speed. I look at if people start taking each other out and he's there in the end.
Well, that's usually how Keselowski wins races anyway.
It is. It kind of seems this race is going that way. And Buescher, 7th last spring, he had a car capable of pulling the upset in Daytona. So it's like, why not with him?
Especially taking them both. They're, you're hoping, just like Daytona, that they're going to be hanging on to each other.
Yeah, and he was 7th in the spring before on the old configuration. So 7th, lucky number 3, number 7s. It's like, you look out and you're getting a 25 to 1.
I'll believe it. Yeah.
Yep. I like them because I know we're going to get into Stuart Haas later, but I just don't like the way Stuart Haas runs there. Other than Blaney, Penske's not great there. And this package that I just feel like somebody from Ford has to carry the baton, and maybe it's RFK.
All right. Now let's move on to Penske. And Penske, we all just took one driver, and that's it. And that's Blaney at 12 to 1. Again, he was solid here last year. Coming off, again, even though he was nothing more than a top 10 car, he lucked his way up to a second-place finish. So psychologically, that could go well for him heading into this race. Logano had one top 10 here last year. Cindric was 3rd in July. Was probably involved in a wreck in March. And you are getting 30 to 1 with Cindric. So not the worst idea in the world, considering he won the Daytona 500. So if you wanted to put a couple bucks on Cindric, I'd be okay with that. But Blaney is definitely the one because, as we've been saying, it's time for a win.
It is. Blaney, in overall, 4 top 5s in his last 5 there, and he was running in the top 3. He was drafting with Wallace, and they got wrecked.
Oh, okay.
So he was in the top 3 in the spring race. Coming off, he set a top 5. He's got to get a win. He's won at Atlanta in the past. This is a great spot. Cindric, I just didn't trust. 30 to 1 is a good number for him. He just seems off this season.
Yeah, so far.
And we can segue into the Wood brothers in this too, because I look at, because Cindric and Burton are both sophomore drivers. They're both in their second year. And Burton, 26th, 15th, 26th, 35th. Cindric, 23rd, 28th, 6th, 25th. Burton's 30th in points. They just seem to me, they're just missing something for me to just all of a sudden think they're going to win. And then Logano is the other driver. His last 6 Atlanta starts, he's finished 23rd, 10th, 15th, 19th, 9th, and 26th. And his last 3 starts on a season, he's finished 10th, 36th, 11th. And that just doesn't scream race winner for me, especially for 12 to 1. So I thought out of that group, we talked about, Blaney's the safe pick out of those to go with.
And by the way, speaking of Burton, I made my move on fantasy. I made the first move, the first transaction of the fantasy season. Well, besides Elliott's injury, was me dropping Burton and picking up Chris Buescher. So, what did you think about that swap?
I think it was smart because Burton just doesn't look much better than he was last year, and Buescher looks better than he was last year. So you're getting, I guess, the veteran leadership, I say. But kind of like my method was I want my bottom guys just get me top 20s, and Buescher can get you that.
Yeah, he can
Burton,
do that,
as I just said, Burton's got a lot to prove here lately, and Buescher could go out and win this week. So that's a wise move.
Gilliland and McDowell, 50 to 1. We know McDowell would be the choice over Gilliland, but I don't know. We just haven't really heard much of McDowell for a while.
No, and in this race, even last year, 24th and 15th, just never was much of a factor. So I would punt on both of those guys, even for getting better odds, for 50 to 1 for both.
And then Stewart Haas, Harvick, Briscoe, Preece, and Almirola. Great odds across the board. I am surprised that neither one of you put money on Harvick at 25 to 1. Because I'm just a little surprised he was 25 to 1. Now, I understand we just went over the whole thing about Hendrick versus Ford, and I know he didn't have anything last year, no top 10s here, but look what he did last week. He's proving that he did something different with Kevin Harvick this year, and we know he can race we know he can draft. That's not a problem. So I mean, if he's 15-1, it's a different story. But at 25-1, I thought there's no way I can't take him.
I almost did. I sided more with Keselowski on that too. Just again, I know what I'm getting out of him on a drafting track. And Harvick just 21st and 12th last year. I'm like, these aren't great numbers. And Stewart Haas across the board was just not good there.
Drafting partners not. I mean, who? Almirola? Well, who do you think is better, Almirola or Preece as a drafting partner?
I would say Almirola, but Preece is just not what I thought this season so far.
I was surprised that you guys did not put any money on both of you guys. You were Preece in the preseason, and you didn't put anything on him today.
No, I think Cole Custer's sitting back right now doing one of these. Like, what? I told you so. I mean, 36th, 33rd, 23rd, and 12th. He looks exactly – those are what Cole Custer could have done in that car last year. So, looks no different. Stewart Haas wasn't very good there last year, so I'm like, I'm definitely not going that direction. Almirola's got 3 top 10s and 14 tries in Atlanta, 9 of which are 15th or worse. And it seems like he keeps getting caught up in wrecks. I'm like, I don't trust him. Granted, he was 8th in the spring race, but that also is his second best finish ever there. And we're even talking back to his Xfinity days. And
by the way, it was good for Briscoe to finish in the top 10 last week. That should hopefully give him some momentum.
But he was only 15th and 16th there last year. So I feel like they've got some work to do before I would take them, especially if you get better value.
Well, the good thing is you're getting 35-1 with Briscoe. So
yes, that's really key with that one.
But
yes,
can't bet them all. All right.
No.
So your top 3?
Honestly, I'm gonna go Bowman, Chastain, and Suarez.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I would go Blaney, Chastain, and Bowman. That's the way I would go.
The only reason I didn't say Blaney was I know if I've got 3 Chevy Bullets right there that I think one of them I think should win.
All right, now, as I promised before, we're going to talk about our viewers and their comments before we wrap up. So we want to thank John DeRosa because John actually donated some funds. So appreciate that, John. Yep. And John, by the way, he loved the Sox hat, so we're going to find out.
Yeah, I noticed that. I should have grabbed it this week. That is,
you do realize if he loved the Sox hat, he's probably not going to love the Orioles.
Probably going to hate this one. Yeah, I've got to make a disclosure. This is my kid's T-ball team a year or so ago. So
okay.
I was going to get a haircut before the show, but my guy wasn't in this morning, so I just grabbed the hat out of the drawer. And I usually will buy a hat for the team that they are.
Yeah, it's March Madness. No Indiana Hoosiers hat?
I have one, and I haven't worn it in a few years, so I don't have an IU hat. So
come on, man! How do you not have an IU hat?
What's up with that? Well, because I actually have a back in the 90s. You know, they're script Indiana and the shooting shirts, like the real ones. Bobby Knight's son, when they were done with him this season, he had a store that he would sell the stuff out of, and so I was little when I got it, so it was kind of big on me then, but it fits me now. I have like a real IU game used like shooting shirt.
That's cool.
And I wear that with my son. Like, a hat doesn't really look good with a basketball shooting shirt.
That's cool.
During IU games, I'll usually wear stuff like that.
That's cool. So, yeah, speaking of March Madness, boy, you probably won't want to take a look at that video I put out on Sunday night after I found out Rutgers wasn't invited to the.
That shocked me.
I was beyond. I mean, you talk about. I had to put the show in the category, the language category. So I got half monetized because of all the language that I knew. I knew what I was going to say, so it wasn't like I don't believe I should have gotten half monetized. But yeah, I wasn't happy, and I thought it was a real shame. But especially when you penalize players, because basically what they did was they said the guy's injured, and we're taking that's what. And the other thing that they don't do is, which is ridiculous, is they don't care what happens in the tournaments.
No, and that shows that if I'm the Big Ten, like, why would we play this tournament anymore?
Exactly. If you're going to play it, we should probably play it 2 weeks prior or something when they're paying attention.
Yeah.
So it's
they played teams so tough there in the end. It's like
that's
Northwestern, who's a 7th seed. You basically said because you lost to a 7th seed at home, which everybody was beating each other. That to me told me they took them out of the bracket because they lost to Northwestern. But they turned around and they played Purdue tough and were winning.
I looked at it as they felt that all they had to do was prove that in the tournament that they were going to. Because, I thought if they thought they had to beat Northwestern, I think they would have beat Northwestern. Because that's the type of team they are. They're like, all right, well, our backs are against the wall. We know we got to win. We'll do it. But I don't think they felt they had to beat Northwestern. I thought we're gonna recharge our batteries for the tournament. It didn't mean anything. So anyway, so John also said, why did DraftKings stop offering top 10 picks?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I don't know why they did, because it seems
what are top
you're
10
right.
Picks?
So you could bet on if they finish the top 3 or the top 5. I did notice that. Probably because last year was Daytona. It was the 400. Somebody went in there and bet the long shots for top 10s. And I'm talking the Noah Gragson that year and the Timmy Hill and another one. And they parlayed. I think they had 4 of them, and they parlayed it, and they won $1 million off a $20 bet of parlaying those long. So I'm assuming because of that
could have been it.
They probably let's just focus on top 3 and top 5, because those guys aren't weekly going to get top 3s or top 5. So that would be my guess, but I'm not 100% certain on that either.
John, regarding Chase, he says Chase being out is good for betting. One less great driver you don't have to worry about betting on weekly. That's the only positive, Chase being out. And I thought that was smart.
Very interesting. Yeah, that is
because really all the odds stay the same with all the other. Nothing happens.
Yeah, it really didn't.
He's right. You just have one less driver to worry about.
You probably would have taken one guy out of the 10-1. I guarantee he would have been those 3 Hendrick guys would have been 10-1, or he might have been 9-1. So you're eliminating.
Bobby Ferguson, good show, guys. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Alan Batt, we've heard of Alan before.
Yeah.
Hello from Croatia.
All right. Hello.
Great job, guys. So Alan is from Croatia. That's awesome. One of my best friends growing up was half Croatian. So that's cool. Big Rooster. Snowboard. Oh, this is regarding Chase. Snowboarding isn't dangerous. I would bet money someone crashed into him on the slopes.
I think I comment on that. Yeah, that could have been. It's the driver's stat. I've never been snowboarding, so I can't say whether it is or not.
But isn't there a fine line between the word dangerous and that you could just sprain your ankle, break your ankle? I mean,
you could get, because I look at it as, could you do something there that could keep you out of the car for a while? The answer is definitely yes. That to me is dangerous. Whereas if I'm walking down the street, I don't think or
if he was jogging. Hey, I'm going to take up jogging.
Yeah,
okay.
So you're probably not getting, unless you're going to get hit by a car, which is a completely different story.
I'm going to do some breaststrokes. All right.
Yeah.
More power to you.
It's not just like Hendrick was working out, and I think he hurt his knee, but it didn't keep him out of the car. You have to do something.
Yeah, you got to do something. Yeah.
The danger is with that aspect. If it's something that's going to keep you out of the car, that's the fine line. I don't know if that risk is worth it.
Lewis Lynn, great videos. Keep up the great content.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.
And Joe Kluska, nice video. What's up, Joe? What's up with the? You could have said
Joe.
Great.
Yeah.
I like Tyler Reddick from my long shot. This is for last week, or Bubba. They had a great long run average. Kyle Larson for the win, or Byron again.
Hey, you hit it, because you got Byron. Larson was second, or he was best car, should have been second, but Reddick third.
So Joe picked a winner.
Yep.
All right. So again, no IndyCar for another few weeks.
Yep.
F1 Friday. CJ will be recording that. And if you are into IndyCar, I mean F1, give that a try, because CJ could use all the good vibes he can get. He's just breaking into it. It's only his second report, so give him some love. And we'll be back next week for
Coda. It'd be we got Kimi Räikkönen and Jenson Button. We're probably gonna get the international flavor next week with Jenson Button, old F1 driver, run the NASCAR race. Kimi Räikkönen's back. Connor Daly's running. Jimmy Johnson's back. Jordan Taylor from IMSA.
Okay. How was it last year?
We got an all-star.
How was it last year compared to the others?
Last year was better. That was the one that Reddick and or not Reddick. Reddick was in the mix, and Chastain, Rex Allmendinger for the win.
Oh, so there was some excitement at the end.
Yeah, so I expect some excitement. I expect a lot of attention on that one with all these kind of all-star cast kind of showing up and running. So
Okay.
I'll be interested to see the attention for that one.
Unfortunately, it is going to be on a day just like this Sunday when you're going to have some college basketball. But
That is, yeah, it depends on who's playing, because that'd be the Elite Eight, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be the Elite Eight.
But hey, you know what? It doesn't really matter in some sense because the time of these races. See, that's the thing. An even better reason why you could have these races start earlier. Like if you started the race at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you're not interfering a lot of times, especially in college basketball. I mean, even on the weekends, most of the top games are later in the day.
I was going to say, I'm assuming the regional finals like that used to be, 2 and 5?
Oh, you mean the Elite Eight?
Yeah, I'm thinking
that could be
later in the afternoon.
It depends. On a Saturday, it could wind up being
Saturday's
later.
usually 5 and 8. I think Saturdays are 5 and 8, and the Sunday's 2 and 5.
Could be.
So
yeah,
the race, in theory, if you started at noon, you're pretty much over or ending around the time that the Elite
now
Eight
you're
game
competing
started.
with it head on head.
Yeah. Now you're right in the middle of it.
But they don't listen to us anyway. So.
No.
All right, Eric. Thank you. This was as long as a regular season show that we've ever done.
This was a lot to talk about this week.
Yes, there was. All right. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, sounds good.
Good luck for your Hoosiers.
Thank you. Yeah,
Who they playing?
See what happens. Kent State Friday night.
Oh, dude, Kent State's one of my bubble busters.
They
busters.
Scare me. Yeah, they could.
I like Kent State.
If IU shows up, if the good IU shows up, I think they'll win pretty good. If the bad IU shows up, where they don't stand in front of the ball, they'll get beat by 20.
This is a good team.
IU struggles with. I saw Kent State doesn't guard the paint real well because Timmy's got his. So Trace could get his. IU's thing's going to be, can you stay in front of the ball? Because Kent State will light it up.
Yeah, they got to defend. Yeah.
Yeah. So if IU defend, that's going to be the key is can IU defend? Because Kent State, I think they'll get their points on Kent State just because it seems like IU they'll get between 60 and 70 or 60 and 80. But Kent State, you're going to have to keep them in the 50s or low 60s or they'll beat you.
That'll be a good game to watch. There'll be some scoring. That should be in the 70s, you would think.
I would think because both teams lack defense. I think Kent State was 139th in defensive rating, but IU, man, they do not stay in front of the ball. That's been their Achilles heel is actually just staying in front of the ball because what happens is teams have got smart as they dribble around you and they bring the help and then IU's slow to recover and you're just giving wide open threes. And if Kent State's hitting, it's not going to bode well.
That's what you love college basketball, the tournament, because like you said, if the other team is hitting, a lot of teams, that's where you get upsets. So
that's where it's going to be tough. That's where the spread on that one is I'm not touching that
what
yet.
Is it?
I think it was 3.5 or 4.
Respect.
And I'm like that's too close for me right now.
Yeah, that's respect.
Because I feel like at that range, it's either IU's going to win by more than 4. If it's 4, IU's going to beat them by more than that. If you're going to take the points, then I think you might as well bet it up the Kent State minus because if it's within 4, Kent State's going to win.
I was.
I don't think.
Yeah, I would have wanted if I'm Kent State. That's one of several teams I was looking forward to putting money on the money line or something. It's that's all I'm getting against Indiana.
Yeah, not worth it. That 4-13 matchup, they're basically. That's what I said. IU's either going to win by 15 to 20 or they're going to lose by 20.
Who's
I don't
the
think
winner
that
play?
game will. Miami or Drake, which I have Drake.
And I like Drake
Miami.
too. Wow, you could see Drake Kent State in the well, you wouldn't want to see that, of course, but
I think my upset special is that one right above that is I think Auburn is going to beat Iowa because Iowa just seems to shit the bed every time they get into a tournament, and Houston. So do you know where that region's being played at? It's Birmingham.
Okay.
Alabama or Auburn is not far from Birmingham.
What, they would play in the next round?
They would play Houston in the next round.
That would be a good
one.
I
have Auburn upsetting Houston just only because of proximity. Houston's got it. Don't they have 2 guys hurt?
Houston?
Yeah.
I don't know about 2, but I haven't. Maybe I don't know.
I know they got at least 1 out, and then I know for Auburn that I saw they started off 16-3. They just kind of
they
hit a rough
haven't been playing as well. Yeah.
But they can. Bruce Pearl. It's man, you're giving them a basic home game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be very happy about that if I was Houston.
I wouldn't either. That shocked me. So I had IU. I actually had IU. I was I'm just going to pick them just because I think it go either way. I think they beat Drake. Miami's big name's out. I saw he's not playing, I don't think. And then I have Auburn knocking off Houston. But for IU internally, we're all here. So Sinderoff is Kent State's coach. He was the assistant for Kelvin Sampson when Sampson got IU in all that trouble.
Oh.
So Sinderoff coaches Kent State.
Yes.
So IU kind of got a rematch there. And then it could be IU Houston in the Sweet 16 with Sampson.
Okay.
So this is kind of the revenge tour.
All right.
Granted, these players don't
they
want to
don't
play
care.
with it.
No.
They don't
That's
care.
only
It's
good for
more
the media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the first things first is you have to get there.
Well, that's true.
Easier said than done.
All right, man. We'll see if they're still alive when we talk next week.
Exactly. That'll
All
work.
right, man. Take care.
All right. See ya.